Ethan had always loved exploring. As a human assigned to a remote colony on the edge of known space, he often walked the forests of foreign planets, marveling at strange trees, glowing plants, and the quiet hum of alien wildlife. This planet, designated Navara 7, was one of the most beautiful he had seen. Its towering trees shimmered under the soft light of 3 moons, and the ground pulsed with faint bioluminescence that seemed to move with every step he took. He had spent the past week studying the forest, recording samples, and mapping out the terrain. Yet, no matter how familiar he thought he was becoming, the forest always held surprises. Today, the air felt different, charged, almost alive. The rustling of leaves and the sudden glint of movement caught his attention. He paused, hand resting on the grip of his scanner, scanning for any sign of life. A shape appeared between 2 giant luminescent ferns. Ethan froze. It was tall and graceful, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its skin glowed faintly, like liquid light moving under a delicate surface. Its eyes were large and bright, reflecting a kind of intelligence that made him pause. He realized, almost instantly, that this was an alien being. And it was not hostile, at least. Not yet. The alien moved with fluidity, each motion deliberate and careful. Ethan took a cautious step forward, hoping it wouldn't feel threatened. Suddenly, the ground beneath him gave way slightly. A patch of the forest floor, hidden by ferns, crumbled into a small pit. Ethan stumbled, but managed to catch himself. The sound of shifting soil startled the alien, and it froze. Staring at him, Ethan raised his hands slowly. "It's okay," he said in the basic universal language taught to all human explorers. "I mean no harm." The alien tilted its head, studying him. Its eyes, large and reflective, seemed to understand more than just words. There was curiosity, but also caution. Ethan noticed that the alien's movements were delicate, as if the forest itself could harm it in ways humans could not see. A sudden rumble echoed through the trees. The soil beneath the alien's feet cracked, and a large piece of falling bark threatened to topple over. Without thinking, Ethan moved quickly behind it, pushing with his body to shield the alien from the falling debris. The bark hit the ground with a heavy thud, missing them both. The alien blinked. Then, almost imperceptibly, it leaned slightly forward, acknowledging his action. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. It was a small gesture, but somehow it felt monumental. The alien, who he would soon learn was called Liara, had seen many creatures before, but few acted with such instinctive care. "You saved me." Liara's thoughts echoed in his mind, transmitted in the telepathic way he had read about in reports. Ethan realized she was communicating without words. He focused, letting his mind remain calm so he could receive her thoughts. I didn't mean to frighten you," he said aloud. Liara's gaze softened, though she remained alert. "You are different," her mind seemed to say. "Few humans think of others before themselves." Ethan smiled. "I try. I guess it's just instinct sometimes." For a few moments, they simply observed one another. The forest seemed to hold its breath around them. Ethan could feel the alien's curiosity, a mix of caution and intrigue. He knew he was witnessing something rare, the beginning of trust. As they continued through the forest, Liara moved ahead, but Ethan kept a careful distance, close enough to help if danger arose. Every few steps, he noticed small gestures, how she hesitated at certain plants, how her hands traced the air as if reading invisible patterns. He realized that this was her world, and he was a guest learning its rules. Then, as they reached a small clearing, a sudden screech echoed from above. A flock of winged creatures, their feathers glowing faintly like the forest floor, swooped down in a panic. Ethan instinctively moved behind Liara once again, placing himself in a protective stance. One of the creatures skimmed dangerously close, but he guided it away with careful movements. Liara's eyes met his, and this time, there was something like respect in them. "You do not fear me," her mind whispered. Ethan shook his head. "Not anymore. I trust you too." For hours, they moved together. exploring. Ethan was amazed by the way Liara interacted with her environment. She could sense vibrations in the soil, detect hidden creatures, and even influence the glow of some plants with subtle gestures. Each time a minor hazard appeared, a falling branch, a sudden drop in the terrain, Ethan was ready, and each time, he found himself instinctively moving behind her to provide support. It was not a show of dominance or control. It was a quiet acknowledgement of responsibility, of care. By nightfall, the 3 moons had risen high in the sky, casting gentle light on the glowing plants. Liara led him to a small stream, its waters clear and sparkling. Ethan knelt to take a drink and noticed how Liara observed him, her luminous eyes reflecting the water. "You are unlike any human I have met." Liara's thoughts reached him again. "You act with thoughtfulness, yet without hesitation when needed. It is rare." Ethan chuckled softly. "I guess I just don't like seeing anyone hurt. You're not just any alien, you're remarkable." Liara's head tilted. She did not speak aloud, but he felt a connection forming, not through language or gestures, but something deeper, a shared understanding of empathy and courage. They camped near the stream that night, and for the first time, Ethan felt a strange peace. He had come to Navara 7, expecting challenges, study, and perhaps loneliness. Instead, he had found an ally, a friend, and something entirely unexpected. As he drifted to sleep, he thought about the moments when he had instinctively moved behind Liara, protecting her from danger. It was a simple action, yet it had created a bond. He realized that trust was built in moments like these, not through grand speeches, but through small, consistent acts of care. Liara, too, watched him from a distance, her glowing form blending with the luminescent flora. She had learned something about humans today. They were unpredictable, yes, and sometimes reckless, but also capable of bravery, kindness, and thoughtfulness. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a sense of curiosity and connection she could not explain fully. By the time the moons had shifted and the forest grew quiet, both human and alien were aware of one truth. This meeting was no accident. Their paths had crossed for a reason, and though the dangers of Navara 7 were far from over, they would face them together. Ethan did not know what the next day would bring. New challenges, unknown creatures, and uncharted terrain awaited. But for the first time in his exploration, he felt less like an intruder, and more like a partner in a vast, mysterious world. As he settled into a makeshift shelter for the night, he thought of one thing. Sometimes, the smallest gestures standing behind someone to protect them could start something far greater than anyone could imagine. And he knew, with a certainty that warmed him through, that this was only the beginning of his story with Liara. Morning came slowly on Navara 7. The 3 moons hung low, casting gentle, shifting light over the forest. Ethan awoke first, careful not to disturb Liara, who was resting nearby in a graceful curl that seemed almost like part of the glowing flora. He watched her for a moment, marveling at how her skin shimmered softly in the light, blending perfectly with the forest's luminous colors. He stretched and packed their minimal supplies. Today, he knew, would be about exploration and understanding. The forest was alive with energy, and there were areas he had not yet charted. Liara stirred as he moved, her large eyes opening slowly. She tilted her head and extended one hand toward him, a subtle gesture of greeting. "Good morning," Ethan said. "Ready to see what's out there?" Liara's thoughts flowed into his mind gently, calm but precise. "I am curious, and I wish to see it with you," Ethan smiled. Humans had learned that communication could go beyond words, but he still marveled at how effortlessly Liara's mind reached his. "Then let's go," he said, motioning for her to lead the way. As they walked, Ethan took careful notes and collected plant samples, always mindful of Liara's movements. He noticed how she avoided certain areas where the soil vibrated strangely or plants reacted to her presence. Her world was alive in ways he had never imagined. Every so often, she would pause, sensing something invisible. And Ethan would instinctively move behind her, ready to help if any danger appeared. She noticed this each time, and he could sense a quiet appreciation in her presence. Hours passed as they moved deeper into the forest. The air was thick with the scent of alien flora, sweet and sharp at the same time. Strange insects with translucent wings flitted around them, leaving trails of faint light in the air. Ethan carefully documented everything. But more than the scientific data, he was fascinated by Liara herself. How she moved, how she sensed the environment, and how her presence seemed to harmonize with the world around her. Then, without warning, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Ethan stumbled, and Liara's large eyes widened. A nearby grove of glowing trees began to collapse, the roots pulling away from the soil. Ethan reacted instinctively. He rushed to stand behind Liara, guiding her away from the falling trunks and debris. One massive branch fell where she had been standing moments before, narrowly missing her. "You saved me again," her thoughts echoed, tinged with something like surprise. Ethan laughed softly, trying to hide his own racing heart. "I'm not letting anything happen to you. It's instinct." Liara's gaze lingered on him for a moment longer than necessary. There was a quiet trust forming, built on these small but critical actions. She had learned that humans, despite their physical vulnerability, could act with thoughtfulness and courage that surpassed expectation. Once the immediate danger had passed, they pressed onward. Liara led him to a valley that pulsed with an even stronger bioluminescent energy. The plants there seemed to respond to her presence, swaying gently, almost as if greeting her. Ethan carefully observed, recording data and taking notes. "This place, it's incredible," he said, barely able to hide his awe. "I've never seen anything like it." Liara's thoughts reached him clearly. "It is the heart of the forest. Few outsiders come here. The energy is strong. You are welcome." Ethan nodded respectfully. "Thank you for showing me." As they explored, they came across a cluster of alien creatures, small, quadrupedal beings, with glowing patterns along their backs. The creatures froze as Liara approached. Then, surprisingly, they relaxed, bowing their heads slightly in recognition. Ethan was amazed. "You can communicate with them?" he asked quietly. Liara nodded, her thoughts gentle. "I do not speak their words as humans do, but they understand intention. And you have shown good intention." Ethan felt a small surge of pride. "I guess we're learning a lot from each other," he said. The peaceful moment did not last. A sudden storm began to form. Unlike anything Ethan had seen, purple and green clouds swirled overhead, and energy streaks danced through the sky. The ground vibrated with each strike, and trees swayed violently. Ethan felt the hairs on his neck stand on end. This was no ordinary storm. It was charged with some sort of raw planetary energy. Liara's eyes narrowed. "We must find shelter quickly," Ethan nodded. Without hesitation, he moved to stand behind her, placing himself in a position where he could react to falling debris and guide her through the chaotic terrain. They sprinted through the forest, dodging branches that fell like spears, navigating sudden pits that opened in the glowing soil, and leaping over tangled roots. "You are brave." Liara's thoughts reached him again, tinged with admiration. Ethan grinned despite the danger. "I'm trying. We'll get through this together." Finally, they reached a cave nestled at the base of a glowing cliff. The walls shimmered faintly with mineral deposits that reflected the storm's energy outside. Ethan ushered Liara inside first, then followed, helping her avoid jagged rocks near the entrance. Inside, they caught their breath. Rain and energy strikes pounded the cave's entrance, lighting up the interior with flashes of green and purple. Ethan could feel the tension leave him slowly, though he remained alert. He watched Liara, who had never appeared more human in her expressions of caution and relief. "You handled that well," she sent mentally, almost shyly. Ethan smiled. "Thanks. But you led the way. I just made sure we stayed safe." For several hours, they waited out the storm. Ethan shared stories of Earth and humanity, explaining how humans had explored space and met other species. Liara listened intently, her large eyes glowing faintly as she absorbed every word. In return, she shared the history of her planet and species, stories of harmony with the forest and the creatures that lived there. Ethan was amazed at the depth of knowledge and empathy she displayed. As the storm finally subsided, Ethan and Liara emerged from the cave. The forest had changed the energy left behind by the storm, made the plants glow even brighter, and new growth seemed to sprout almost instantly. It was as if the planet itself was celebrating their survival. Ethan looked at Liara. "I've never seen anything like this," he said, marveling at the vibrant life around them. Liara's thoughts were calm, content. "You are capable of bravery and care. Humans may be fragile, yet you make a difference. I trust you." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. Trust was a rare thing, and earning it from someone or something so extraordinary felt like an accomplishment beyond measure. They continued their exploration until night fell. Ethan set up a small camp near a grove of glowing trees, careful to leave space for Liara to rest. They shared a simple meal from supplies he carried, and for the first time, Ethan realized how much he valued her presence. Not just as an alien being to study, but as a partner in this adventure, someone whose abilities, thoughts, and trust he respected deeply. Liara observed him silently. She had learned much from humans today, not just their curiosity, but their ability to act with empathy, to risk themselves to help others, and to think beyond immediate survival. She had also learned something more subtle: that humans could form connections that transcended species, using courage, thoughtfulness, and care as the foundation. As they settled for the night, Ethan could not stop thinking about the day's events. Each time he had positioned himself behind Liara, protecting her or guiding her through danger, he had felt a strange sense of purpose. It was not heroism for glory, it was instinctive, simple, and yet powerful. It had created a bond that he knew would grow stronger with each shared moment. Liara, too, lay nearby, watching him with eyes that reflected the forest's light. She understood humans more now than when they first met. They were fragile, yes, and sometimes unpredictable. But they were also capable of acts that left a lasting impact, acts of courage, empathy, and care that could shape worlds. As Ethan drifted to sleep, he felt a quiet hope. Tomorrow, they would explore further, face new challenges, and continue learning from one another. And he knew, without doubt, that the trust they had built today would guide them through whatever the forest or the universe threw at them next. Sometimes, he thought, the smallest gestures, moving behind someone to shield them, standing ready to act without hesitation, could start something far greater than anyone could imagine. And on Nivara 7, with Liara at his side, Ethan was certain that this was only the beginning. The morning air on Nivara 7 was crisp and filled with the soft hum of the forest's energy. Ethan woke to find Liara already standing near the edge of the grove, her luminous eyes scanning the horizon. She had an alertness today that spoke of caution and curiosity in equal measure. "Morning," Ethan said, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Are you ready to continue?" Liara's gaze shifted to him, and he felt her thoughts reach his mind. "There is more to see, but today, we must be careful." Ethan nodded. "Understood." They moved together through the glowing forest, stepping carefully over roots and streams. The storm from the previous day had transformed the terrain. Plants that had once been small and delicate now towered above them, vibrant with fresh growth. Strange, bioluminescent vines curled along the ground like living ribbons. Every step seemed to reveal a new marvel. For the first hour, their exploration was peaceful. Ethan carefully documented plant species and strange insects, while Liara demonstrated subtle ways to interact with the environment. She would touch certain plants, and they would glow brighter. She would whisper through thought, and tiny creatures would pause and watch. Ethan was fascinated. He realized that Liara's connection to her world was not just biological, it was emotional and intuitive. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the forest floor. Ethan froze. Liara's eyes widened, and she pointed with a hand toward a narrow valley ahead. Ethan followed her gaze. There, at the base of a jagged cliff, he saw movement. A group of hostile aliens, clearly predators, stalking the valley. Their features were sharp and angular, their skin a dull gray, blending almost perfectly with the rocks. They were clearly hunting. Liara's thoughts reached him quickly, urgent but controlled. They sense us. They will attack if we are careless. Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. He quickly assessed the terrain, noting hiding places, fallen logs, and dense vegetation. "We'll need to move carefully," he said aloud. "Stay close. I'll cover the path behind you." Without hesitation, he moved to position himself behind Liara, shielding her as they began advancing through a narrow trail. The predator's sharp eyes scanned the forest, and Ethan could see how every small sound or movement drew their attention. He had to think quickly, using both his instincts and what he had learned from Liara about the forest. One of the predators hissed and began to move toward them. Ethan grabbed a fallen branch and tossed it to the side, creating a small distraction. The predator snapped its head toward the sound, giving them a brief window to advance. Liara moved swiftly, her long limbs navigating the terrain with precision. "You are very clever," Liara's thoughts flowed to him. "Humans are not just fragile, they can think fast." Ethan smiled grimly. "I've had some practice," he said, though his heart was racing. As they progressed, the trail narrowed further. A small ravine appeared to their right, and rocks shifted dangerously underfoot. Ethan reached for Liara's arm instinctively. "Careful," he whispered. He guided her steps while staying behind, his body ready to shield her from any falling debris. A loose rock tumbled past, missing them by inches. Liara glanced at him, and he caught the subtle acknowledgement of gratitude in her glowing eyes. The predators were getting closer, their movements faster, more coordinated. Ethan realized that direct confrontation would be dangerous. Instead, he focused on strategy and teamwork. He observed the terrain for vantage points and traps they could use. Spotting a series of low-hanging vines near a cliff face, he gestured to Liara. She understood immediately. They worked silently, waiting for the predators to come into position. When the first predator stepped too close to the vines, Ethan gave a subtle signal. Liara twined the vines with her hands, creating a makeshift snare. The predator tripped, letting out a loud shriek. The other predators paused, confused. And Ethan used the opportunity to push a few fallen logs toward the path, blocking their advance. "You are amazing." Liara's thoughts reached him, impressed. "Your human ingenuity. It is unusual and effective." Ethan shrugged modestly. "I just look for solutions." The predators, realizing they were outmaneuvered, retreated slowly. Ethan stayed alert, moving behind Liara as they ensured the path was safe. The tension gradually eased, replaced by the thrill of success. They had survived a real threat together. After the danger passed, Ethan and Liara paused near a glowing pond. The water reflected the shimmering canopy above, and for a moment, the forest seemed peaceful again. Ethan knelt by the edge, dipping his hands into the cool liquid. Liara mirrored him, lowering her head gracefully. "You are learning quickly," she said, her thoughts calm now. "Not just about the forest, but about life and danger." Ethan smiled, feeling a quiet pride. "I'm learning from the best." The moment of peace was short-lived. A sudden, high-pitched cry echoed through the forest. Ethan and Liara tensed. From a nearby thicket, a small group of forest creatures appeared, clearly in distress. Liara rushed forward instinctively, and Ethan followed, placing himself behind her, ready to react to any threat. The creatures led them to a fallen tree, its massive trunk blocking the path of a natural waterway. The pond had begun to overflow, threatening to wash away smaller plants and animals. Ethan quickly realized what needed to be done. Using his human strength and tools, he began moving debris, creating channels for the water to flow safely. Liara assisted with her telepathic and physical skills, guiding plants to bend or shift, allowing water to pass harmlessly. For hours, they worked together, saving the small creatures, and preventing environmental damage. Ethan felt a deep sense of satisfaction not just from solving the problem, but from working as a true team with Liara. Each time he positioned himself behind her, protecting and supporting, he felt the bond between them grow stronger. By evening, the waterway was stable, and the creatures had found safety. Liara looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of admiration and trust. "You are a human of great value. I respect you deeply." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. "Thank you," he said softly. "But I couldn't have done it without you." They set up camp near the waterway, sharing a quiet meal. Ethan reflected on the day's events, the predators, the storm, the creatures in need, and realized something profound. Humans, though physically weaker than many species, could make a real difference in the universe. Courage, intelligence, empathy. These were strengths not measured by size or power, but by action. Liara watched him silently, her thoughts flowing gently. She had learned much today about humans. They were capable of fear, yes, but also bravery and ingenuity, and when combined with compassion, they became a force that could influence entire worlds. She felt a connection with Ethan, not just as an ally, but as a being who shared understanding and respect. As the moons rose again, Ethan and Liara rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. The forest of Navara 7 was alive with energy, and they had only begun to explore its depths. But for the first time, Ethan felt confident, supported, and part of something greater than himself. Sometimes, he thought, true heroism was not about glory or recognition. It was about standing behind someone when they needed it, about acting with thoughtfulness and care, even in dangerous circumstances. And on this alien planet, with Liara by his side, he was discovering the meaning of that heroism firsthand. Liara, too, reflected on their day. Humans were strange and unpredictable, yet capable of deeds that left a lasting impression. Ethan had acted without hesitation, placing himself in danger to protect her and others. She understood now that the human heart, fragile yet determined, could achieve remarkable things. As the forest settled into night, the bond between human and alien was undeniable. Trust had been earned through action, bravery, and care, and while tomorrow would undoubtedly bring new challenges, both Ethan and Liara knew they could face them together. Stronger because of the trust and respect they shared, the forest seemed to pulse around them, alive and aware, as if acknowledging their partnership. Ethan lay down near the glowing waterway, his thoughts filled with anticipation. The world was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous, but it was also full of wonder, friendship, and the opportunity to make a difference. And in that quiet moment, as the soft hum of the forest surrounded them, Ethan realized that the greatest adventures were those shared with others, where courage and empathy became the true measure of strength. The next morning, on Navara 7, the forest seemed calmer than the previous days. The soft glow of bioluminescent plants illuminated the path, and Ethan felt a sense of purpose as he stepped carefully through the glowing ferns. Liara walked beside him, her movements precise and graceful, yet relaxed, a sign that trust had grown between them. Today, they were heading toward the ancient ruins Liara had mentioned the first day they met. The ruins were said to hold knowledge from her species' ancestors, structures older than most of the planets humans had explored. Ethan's curiosity was as strong as ever. But he also felt a deep responsibility. Whatever they encountered today could be dangerous, and he had learned the value of moving with care, patience, and teamwork. As they approached the ruins, a soft hum filled the air. Ethan paused, scanning the environment. Liara placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. "The ruins are alive." Her thoughts flowed to him. "They respond to intentions. Be cautious, but respectful." Ethan nodded. "I understand," he said. He slowed his steps, following Liara's lead. She moved with confidence, knowing where to step and how to interact with the structures around them. Every so often, Ethan found himself instinctively positioning himself behind her, ready to assist or protect. It was no longer just instinct, it had become a natural rhythm between them. The ruins were breathtaking. Towers of glowing stone spiraled toward the sky, engraved with patterns that seemed to move in the corner of his eyes. Strange symbols covered the walls, some pulsating with energy. Ethan's scanner picked up subtle vibrations, confirming that this place was not abandoned, it was active in some way. Liara approached a central platform, her hands tracing the symbols on the stone. Ethan watched, fascinated by how her touch seemed to awaken the energy within the ruins. The air around them shimmered slightly, and a soft melody of vibrations filled the area. "You feel that?" Ethan whispered. Liara's thoughts were calm, almost reverent. The ruins respond to life and purpose. They recognize those who act with respect and courage. You have been careful and considerate. The ruins welcome you. Ethan felt a surge of pride. Not because of his actions alone, but because of the partnership and trust that had grown between them. Every small act of care, every time he had stood behind Liara to shield her or guide her, had strengthened the connection that now allowed them to move safely in this sacred place. As they explored deeper into the ruins, they encountered a chamber with a complex mechanism, a kind of ancient energy device, pulsing faintly as if waiting for someone to activate it. Liara explained that the device could enhance the life-supporting energy of the planet, stabilizing dangerous areas and helping the ecosystem thrive. It had been dormant for centuries. Ethan studied the device carefully. "I think I understand how it works," he said, "but we'll need to work together to activate it safely." Liara nodded, her thoughts clear and precise. "Yes. Together, we can awaken it." They spent hours examining the structure, coordinating their actions. Ethan's understanding of human engineering, combined with Liara's telepathic intuition, allowed them to manipulate the device successfully. They moved carefully, step by step, communicating through thought and gestures. Every time Ethan positioned himself behind her, ensuring that she could focus safely on the intricate mechanisms, the device responded positively. Finally, with a series of precise movements, the device activated. A soft, radiant light spread throughout the ruins, extending into the surrounding forest. The plants responded immediately, glowing brighter, their energy harmonizing with the device. Animals emerged from hiding, and the streams and ponds shimmered with renewed vitality. The forest was alive in a new way, stabilized and thriving. Liara turned to Ethan, her glowing eyes filled with what could only be called admiration. "You have done this, not just with knowledge, but with care and courage. Humans may be fragile, but you are capable of great influence." Ethan smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "We did it together," he said. "I couldn't have done it without you." For a long moment, they simply stood there, taking in the beauty of the forest renewed. Ethan realized that this moment was the culmination of everything that had brought them together. Trust, courage, empathy, and partnership. The bond they had formed was stronger than he could have imagined. A bridge between species. A testament to what humans could achieve when they acted with intention and care. As the forest settled into evening, the ruins now glowing softly, Ethan and Liara prepared to leave. They had accomplished something remarkable, and the planet itself seemed to acknowledge their success. On the walk back to their camp, Ethan reflected on the journey. From the first moment he instinctively moved behind Liara to shield her from falling debris, to the challenges of the storm, the predators, and the endangered creatures, every action had reinforced the trust between them. He realized that human bravery was not just in facing danger, it was in acting with empathy and thoughtfulness, even in difficult circumstances. Liara moved beside him, her thoughts calm and steady. "I have learned much from you, Ethan. Humans are unpredictable. Yes, but capable of deeds that inspire and create lasting change. I respect you, not just for your courage, but for your heart." Ethan smiled, understanding the depth of her words. "And I respect you, Liara. You've shown me that strength is not only in action, but in understanding, patience, and connection." They reached the edge of the forest as the moons rose again. casting gentle light over the glowing trees. Ethan looked back at the ruins, feeling a sense of pride and awe. They had not only survived, but they had improved the world around them, leaving a mark of hope and stability. Liara paused, looking at the forest with a thoughtful expression. The forest is at peace, for now. And we have proven that together. Humans and my kind can achieve great things. Ethan nodded. Yes, and this is only the beginning. There is so much more we can learn, so much more we can do. They made camp near a quiet grove, the air filled with the gentle hum of the revitalized forest. As they rested, Ethan felt a profound sense of connection not just to Liara, but to the planet itself. He realized that adventure was not only about exploration or discovery. It was about relationship, trust, and the courage to act for the greater good. Liara lay nearby, her form blending with the glowing flora. She had seen humans act in many ways before, but none had matched Ethan's combination of bravery, intelligence, and care. She felt a deep sense of trust, knowing that together, they could face any challenge. As the night grew quiet, Ethan reflected on the past days, the storms, the predators, the challenges of the terrain, and the awakening of the ancient device. They had all been tests of courage, resourcefulness, and empathy. And in each challenge, humans had proven themselves capable of more than what others might expect. He looked at Liara, feeling a warmth in his chest. He understood now that true heroism was not about physical strength alone. It was about protecting those who needed it, acting thoughtfully in the face of danger, and forming bonds of trust that could bridge even the greatest differences. Liara's thoughts flowed to him one last time before sleep claimed them. Humans are fragile, yet remarkable. You have proven that actions guided by care and courage can shape worlds. I trust you fully. Ethan smiled in the darkness. And I trust you, Liara. Together, we can face anything. The forest of Nivara 7 shimmered softly under the moons, alive with energy and potential. In the quiet night, human and alien rested, knowing that the bond they had forged would last far beyond this adventure. Trust, courage, empathy, and teamwork had carried them through every challenge, and these qualities would continue to guide them as they explored the vast, mysterious world around them. As he drifted into sleep, Ethan thought of one simple truth. Humans were capable of extraordinary things not through domination, not through aggression, but through empathy, intelligence, and the courage to stand behind others when needed. And in doing so, they could earn respect, create lasting change, and form connections that transcended worlds. Liara, too, slept nearby, confident that the human beside her was one worthy of trust and partnership. The bond they had formed was a living testament to what was possible when two beings, different yet alike, worked together with respect and understanding. Together, they had not only survived the challenges of Nivara 7, they had improved it, leaving a legacy of harmony, courage, and hope. And as the forest whispered around them, the world seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the bond between human and alien, and the potential for all life to thrive when trust and care guided their actions.